ma'am. Can you send it via my email? Because I do not have access to the county's email right now.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I did send my priorities to you, Ms. Honey, just in the email.
I saw them. Thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am.
There we go. Below down.
Adrian, where's Adrian? Signed it. Still here. 284,
Teddy.
that's fine.
Good to be back in here.
Yeah, I like this one.
Very good.
Just, I'm an old cop.
Reverend Middleton, since you're not in the room, I just want to let you know that Senate 284 was just signed by the governor.
Good.
Very good. Very good. No big ceremony, huh?
There will be.
Not today.
Very good.
You want to do this after or now?
Well, the first 5 minutes of this meeting, we're going to Yeah. Yeah. Go. No, you can. Everybody had the opportunity to submit it to it me earlier.
So Jim Brown died. Jim Brown, the football player, best running back ever, died.
Tim Keller died today.
Oh, wow. 87 years old.
So let's see.
Jenny, whatever Rob sends you, that's me, because I told him I didn't know if I was going to be here. So I asked him to just incorporate.
Perfect.
You know, me and him are on the same page.
We thought this was obviously the Kristen's idea, but the polling allows everybody to kind of see what all the council members are thinking. So it's a
No problem.
good way to.
So just do 3, I guess? Yeah.
I was told to stay over here.
Good afternoon. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us for this special housing committee. On the committee are myself, Reverend Middleton, who's joining us via Zoom, Mr. Kovrovsky, Rob Werman, and our chairman, Herb Sass, sits on all committees. The first thing we're going to talk about today is the approval of our Housing Our Future plan. We've had the plan. It's gone through the public process, and we want to take a moment to entertain any discussion questions, and then I will entertain a motion from a committee member on the approval and adoption of the plan at the appropriate time. Is there a motion?
Is the motion at the appropriate time?
Yeah, unless anybody has a question about it beforehand. We can discuss it once the motion's on the table.
Okay. I move to adopt the Housing Our Future plan.
I'll second it.
Thank you. Been moved and seconded. Well, is there any discussion? Does anybody want to have any questions while we are in this phase for Ms. Durant? Yes, Mr. Moody.
I'm not on this committee, but I just wanted to give a thanks to Ms. Durant, team, administrator, for the steps that this county has taken in advance of this thing with ARPA funds and stuff like that. This county this council's been criticized a lot for things we have or have not done, but there's been a lot of work done the last 2 years, and I really want to thank the staff for that. Thank you, Ms. Honeycutt.
Yes, sir. Any other discussion?
I'd just like to echo what Mr. Moody said in talking with some folks today at lunch, that our program that we implemented is going to help with a lot of affordable housing, especially gap funding. That's the thing that allowed these people to build more affordable homes. So kudos to our staff and to this council, for moving in that direction.
Absolutely. Mr. Werman?
Madam Vice Chairwoman, this is Kylan Middleton online, and I would like to also just jump in that conversation, just thanking this council for its bold direction forward as it relates to the affordable housing crisis that we have in our region. And so this plan certainly would put the steps in place for us to at least have a framework to address those very, very important issues.
Absolutely. Mr. Werman?
Well, first of all, I would echo what's been said. With many thanks to our staff, with many thanks to consultants and for everyone who's put a ton of work into this, a ton of research, and I think it is a very thorough, I think comprehensive is the right word as far as this plan goes. And I think there's a lot in here that we can work with and move forward. I do have to apologize. I think I missed the instructions. We're going to discuss those priorities after this particular motion.
Yes, sir.
Good deal. Okay. Thank you.
Absolutely. And before we get to a vote, I too want to echo my thanks to our department. We're going to hear in just a few minutes a brief overview of all that we've done to implement an incredible amount of resource we've put towards this, which I think has gone a little under the radar because of the speed with which we did it. But it really is remarkable to look back over the last 3 years and see what we've been able to accomplish. But this plan is only as good as we can fund it. And so the challenge has been, how are we going to begin implementing these things, and where do we start? Because we simply can't do it all at once. And so we'll be spending the rest of the meeting talking about where we go from there. But at this time, I would like to, all in favor of the motion to approve the Housing Our Future plan, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Plan is adopted. All right, so next on our agenda, we are going to turn to page 17 of the plan, which outlines in 5 strategic goal categories recommended strategies. And those are ways to implement what has been set forth in the plan, a very context-based framework for how we can address the specific needs in our community. And we thought our staff have been very forward thinking on this and created a poll for us to use so that those sitting in here and watching online can see what each council member perceives as the priorities. We're going to then discuss those. Oh, welcome, Mr. Kowalski.
Sorry.
No problem.
Thank you for your patience.
And then, can somebody show him how to log into the, and then discuss those priorities, and we'll be looking for a council action, a directive to staff on how to implement those. So, beginning with this poll, if you will go to your poll and select your top 3 priorities out of this list, the sheet in front of you has them identified by number and letter in each category. And then Kristen will put it up on the screen. So,
Just scan that with your camera, when you do your camera, and then click the button, and it'll.
See the QR code, but you do have my priorities, so somehow I would like
Yes.
for my interest to be captured.
Yes, sir.
we'll put those in.
Kristen,
Thank
can
you.
you, on your phone, log Mr. Middleton's?
Yeah. Yeah. There you go. Now hit that. Come on.
Need water?
Yeah, I got mine.
Okay, now I put in the number of what I want.
Yeah.
Just photograph it.
Let's see. Yeah, yeah. I just, are you if you want to do it?
Right, so I got
This one.
He's not cool with it. It should come up.
I did do that. Should I do it now?
I look, yeah.
There we go.
Okay.
I should pull up.
They all waiting for me.
Yes, sir.
Internet might be a little slow.
But he was just here. You can just say skip there. And then it's got
Okay.
they're all numbered just like they are on that page. So once we put ours in, it'll just come up there. Yeah, Kristen will display it. Got it. All ready? I think we're waiting on
I'm ready.
you. Done? You done?
I'll turn it off.
You good.
So is this that one? She's gonna. Okay. She'll make it bigger. Oh no, I see the bottom line. 1, 3C. Okay. Okay.
So it's 1A has 5, 1B has 1, 1C has 1, 2A has 1, 2B has 2, 2C has 1, 3A has 1, 3B has 4, 3C has 2, 3D has 2, 3E has 1, 5B has 2, and 5D has 1.
Oh, we're tied for third place, but it looks like we have a clear majority in 1A and 3B, and that's all of the council members participating? All 9?
Other than Mr. Darby.
Other than Mr. Darby.
Vice Chairwoman Honeycutt?
Yes, sir. Did he hear me? I can't hear.
I did it for you, Mr. Middleton.
Yeah, Reverend Middleton, we put yours in.
Woman Honeycutt, since I'm not able to see, can you read those? I don't know what 1A, 1B, I don't know what those things are.
Absolutely. 1A is the establishment of affordable housing trust fund to support priority activities. And 3B is utilizing and banking land to support affordable and mixed income housing development. Those were the top 2 vote getters.
Thank you.
Yep. And I will just state so that folks online can hear, the tie for the second, I guess the third place would be 4 categories, which are 2B, collaborate with municipal partners to align zoning and other land use regulations. 3C, explore creation of a public development partner. 3D, continue to explore and support housing authority coordination. And 5B, expand home repair resources for seniors and low-income homeowners. So, all excellent ideas. And we thought important to this discussion would be a presentation from staff to explain where we are actually already doing some of these priorities, where we're already executing the work with the use of ARPA funds and HUD funds, programs that we had already had in place, and then discuss what things will need additional resources or sustainable sources of funding. Some of these, establishing partnerships may not require any funding. It's things we can work on. But it seems clear that 1A and 3B are the 2 top priorities, so we'll focus on those. But at this time, I'm going to turn it over to DCA Durant, who's going to go over some of what we're already doing and where we're going to go from there.
Thanks, Chairperson Honeycutt. Just briefly, I'm going to take about 5 to 7 minutes to put in context everything that you all have done for the last 3 years, because spread out over time, it's hard to really keep up. So the brief history, I'm going to give you an update on our recent actions and then our current programs. Briefly, I want to jump way back to 2005 when Charleston County, in partnership with the City of Charleston, funded and developed the Low Country Housing Trust. So the trust fund was created and funded by annual contributions. And in the process of that, you will see in 2009, an update was given to council at that point as to what the leveraging of those funds had done. The other thing I want to mention, since that time, the Low Country Housing Trust has become a community development financing institution. So they are now known as the South Carolina Community Loan Fund. The reason they moved to that is because they were funding and leveraging projects all over the state. So they were more than just a Charleston trust fund. However, their home base is in Charleston. I'll take a moment to say that the president and CEO, and Mr. Pryor, you may remember meeting them, have run and created the Greenville Trust Fund, and they are now down here revamping and repurposing the South Carolina Community Loan Fund to help us achieve our mission. I also will mention that they are our current administrator under contract with us to help us administer the GAP financing. You all approved 5 projects for GAP financing and 2 infills. We are running the infills in-house because we do that already through our community development program, and we are contracting with them because they're the experts at lending and financing and tracking the funds. One other thing I'll mention is regarding the certified CDFI, if you want to ask the difference between that and a trust fund, this is governed like a bank. So the purpose, and I have more information if you have questions we can talk about later, different than a trust fund independent, a CDFI is monitored by Treasury and it follows all the same banking rules that a bank would follow. Now, $83 million. This is what you all have invested in housing projects over the last 3 years. I want to go point for point very quickly through the actions that council has taken. In April 27th, you authorized me to develop an RFP to hire a consultant to develop a county-wide comprehensive housing plan, not a Charleston County government plan, but a comprehensive housing plan for the county. In 23, you appropriated about $25,000 to support a feasibility study for the hot parking lot downtown in conjunction with the COG and the city of Charleston in order to explore the ability to do mixed use on that property. In August of 21, you spent $3.5 million of our recovered revenue from ARPA for housing stability. You'll recall we used that to purchase the 18 houses, which were vacant houses owned by Charleston County Housing and Redevelopment Authority. And you allowed us to set aside money to work on a transitional housing program for women and children. In September of 21, you voted to allow us to enter into a contract with the Development Strategies, which you, of course, have recently seen the results of that work with the comprehensive plan. In April of 21, you authorized us to select, let's see, wait, which one is that?
You
Yeah, that's that one. I already said that. So in June of 21,
We're at February. Go to the bottom.
Oh, okay, there we go. And then February 2nd of 22, that's when we closed on the houses for CCHRA. That list of projects totaled $6.221 million. Then in June and July of 22, you allowed us to appropriate $3 million of our ARPA money for critical home repair. 4 phases. One was to fund CDBG programs that had not been fully funded. 2 was to work on sustainability, weatherization, and to fund the Sustainability Institute. Phase 3 was to bring new nonprofits to the table and train them so that they could be a partner in this administration. And then we did phase 1A, which was the Liberty Hill Redevelopment Group. In June of 22, you decided to set aside $20 million for ARPA funding. In August of 22, you allocated how that $20 million should be spent based on these programs. In January of 23, you appropriated some of that GAP and infill financing to the total of $10.24 million for 5 GAP financing and 2 infill projects for a total of about 337 anticipated affordable units. You then voted to allow us to accept and approve $2.9 million in home funding to develop a dedication of funds to affordable rental housing being administered by community development. You then, in April of 23, allowed us to increase the cap that we had set aside for the Sustainability Institute because the staff was finding that the projects were costing on average more than the $12,000 we had asked for. So you allowed us to increase it to $18,000. So those projects total $13 million. In addition to that, and while it is not related directly to ARPA, every year you allocate money from our HUD programs. Now, we bring our action plan to you every year, and April, May timeframe, depending, and you allocate funds to a number of different projects. But the ones that you've allocated money to related to housing since 2020 are listed here. What's important is with that money, 162 houses have been repaired and 27 have been built for a per unit cost of $18,000 for repairs and $91,000 for build. The reason that's important, and you've heard this from our consultants, you cannot build your way out of this problem. If we don't address preservation as a key element, we will not solve the issue. In addition, we implemented, and staff gets great kudos for implementing $37 million of emergency rental assistance. We originally were awarded about 11 to 12 million, and they implemented it so effectively that we received 3 additional rounds of funds, well, CARES and this, to actually provide stabilization for people that were affected during the pandemic to keep them in their units. That program has ended as of December, and the staff are closing all of those reports out. But that affected 4,416 residents, and about 810 landlords participated in that program. Oh, and by the way, I would mention, this is a screenshot directly from the dashboard that rests on our website. You will be seeing this as well as dashboards for all of our ARPA spending. The staff have been working on that so that we have a ready access snapshot for the community to be able to see what you all are doing. Again, in total, $83 million since 2020 has been devoted to some type of housing preservation, creation, or repair. Now, one of the things that we are working on currently, and I'll touch on these very briefly because these are things we are still vetting and exploring. The concept of a revolving loan fund. Our partnership and our contract with South Carolina Community Loan Fund for the gap financing is sort of our test run to figure out this private-public partnership of how we contract with an entity to manage our funds. The scenario here would be, and Mr. Worman, you will remember, in the beginning, you all asked a lot of questions about could we put money in a trust? Could we take the ARPA money and put it in the trust? I did get a written response from Treasury that if we just deposit it, it doesn't count as an encumbrance. So that was true. What as they are continuing to release refinement of those rules, they have said is if projects are identified, then we can put them in a trust that can revolve that fund so that we can continue to grow the base of that fund. So that ties back to the earlier mention that I had of the trust fund and leveraging other money and revolving that money. Of course, Ms. Honeycutt just announced the governor has signed SC General Assembly Bill S-284, which allows you all to dedicate a portion of our accommodations tax to affordable housing. Staff and legal will be working on all of that as part of a funding option. And then finally, you all have given Ms. Ham and the staff a direction that within the next 60 days, bring some information back to you about how we could use a special source revenue credit bond as it relates to a multi-county park in developing affordable housing. Now, before we go there, any questions about that information and fact? Mr. Kowalski.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure I understood. $83 million for affordable housing since 2020. And of that, to date, is in reality, the 337 anticipated affordable units, 162 homes repaired, 27 houses built. It was that the 37 million, was that part of the 83 million?
That was the emergency.
Okay, so in addition to the, what I said, 4,416 tenants served and 810 landlords affected. And that's where the 83 million went?
Yes. However, I want to point out that depending on how you process that, let's see, I'm trying to think how to answer that distinctly. Everything that was an action of council on those 3 pages that had money tied to it,
Right.
combined with the HUD money and the emergency rental assistance money equals the 83 million.
That just seems a lot of money for the the statistics that people actually benefit. I just, I'm not sure how that's broken down as whether people should just get the money directly. I'm just wondering how 83 million, this affects, but that's just my observation. I'm not sure where to go with that. Thank you for answering it, though.
Mr. Werman? Do you have a comment?
Well, I think, maybe to the point that they were kind of discussing, I mean, I think that if you take it as 83 million and you look at units or whichever metric, I don't know that that's the most accurate way of looking at it. I've touted this before, but I will tout it again. The gap financing run that basically we did directly, not through, well, I guess it's being administered by the loan fund, but, I mean, is at levels of efficiency that, quite frankly, like we were sort of expecting to see, when something was up and running and had been doing it for a long time. I mean, I think that's an incredibly encouraging sign, because you would think that doing it the second time, third time, fourth time would get even more efficient, would solicit more, bidders, more competition, that sort of thing. So, look, you can chop those numbers up however you want, but I do think that what has been gained by all of that is a lot of knowledge, for sure. And yes, we have some units and some real progress to show for it. So that's not a question, that's more of a statement, but it's one that I think should hopefully frame things moving forward.
Mr. Moody?
Thank you, Ms. Honeycutt. An observation, a question. Ms. Durant, the 18 scattered site homes, if I recall, 3 of those had to be demolished. 2 were beyond repair. Do you have an update on the repairs to the remaining homes?
What council agreed to was a 4-phase implementation of those 18 houses. And that was that we would put 4 houses out at a time. We would bring nonprofits, private developers, whoever, walk them through. Staff has been doing that through the houses. And then they will bring back proposals, which the first phase has been received and is in the process of being scored. What we are looking for is best practices, creativity, because we're looking for models that can be replicated, to Mr. Werman's point, of knowledge. So we're asking the experts to come give us their best proposal for what they would do with the house, and then we will bring those recommendations to council. You would choose who to allow to work on those projects. And as we begin that process, we'll put phase 2 out for the next 4 and phase 3 out, and so on.
So when those homes are repaired and are ready for occupancy, who will, I just don't remember who will manage that. We don't need to be in the property management.
would
Do we
not.
sell that to somebody, or do we? What?
And that's part of the return on investment analysis, that when the proposals come in, one of the things that a nonprofit may say is that they will sell it as a home ownership project. And so if they do, I mean, they would be the owner, and that would be sold to a homeowner, not through us, but through the nonprofit. Another scenario could be a nonprofit that wants to keep it as a rental and build an accessory dwelling unit on it to allow somebody to create some income. So there's many scenarios, and that's why we're asking the experts to bring us their proposals so that staff can evaluate them and then make the best decision for the most creative and most successful way to actually use this as a model program.
Thank you. And just to point out what you very nicely pointed out, the repair, 19,000 per unit versus the builds, that's a huge difference. Keeping people in their homes, keeping homes and families is so critical. So thank you for your efforts.
Mr. Cabras?
Thank you very much for all your hard work, and I'm not questioning the nobility of the effort or questioning what we have done and why, but I just wondered if the 83 million, and you said what it did, affordable housing is also the cost of housing. And has there been any study done from all the units and everything you said that the 83 million, has the cost of housing gone down because of that? Has it affected the cost of housing? Or is by subsidizing some, has it made the cost of housing for those who aren't being subsidized or helped go up? For most people, I'm just wondering how it affects the overall cost of housing for the majority of people in Charleston County, other than the people directly impacted, which I'm glad homes are repaired and homes are built for people who don't have dwellings, but I wonder how it affects the affordability of housing for those who aren't being subsidized, or those whose homes aren't being repaired, or the landlords who aren't, or contractors who aren't getting money, and landlords who are getting benefits from this too, to people who aren't directly receiving this, how has it impacted their affordability? I mean, but measured by the cost of their homes and rent.
Sure, may I?
Yes,
I have three thoughts. One is, a lot of this was one-time money. So it was ARPA and Treasury
Right.
money. So it was the first attempt to evaluate how to implement all this money in a way to address the needs that council has identified as a need. That being said, I think it's too soon to know the direct impact. What I can tell you is, even if we just took the emergency rental assistance program as an example, because magistrates, of course, also work with evictions, basically, if you look at this, when you look at the 4,416 people that were assisted, they were not evicted during a time that this funding existed. So whether it was because jobs were closed down, the pandemic, because it's all pandemic related. So that's one thing. I think when you look at these other things, I would point more to Mr. Werman's comment about we are gaining an understanding of how to do this, how the county can be in partnership with private industry or developers and nonprofits to accomplish this with us as the fiscal agent. And again, all of this was money that came to the county. It was not county tax money. It was all part of our federal allocation from HUD or our treasury allocation or our emergency rental.
I'm not questioning anyway the efficiency or expertise of the county people. You've done a wonderful job with the resources you had. I was just trying to get at those who aren't receiving funds from staying in their homes, or landlords, or the construction industry. How is it affecting everybody else and their affordability to be able to stay in their home, because the prices are going up for everybody, and I think that's also part of affordability. So I was questioning the impact on the rest of the people.
I would
You aren't
mention
getting
to
the direct
landlords,
benefits.
One of the things
Right.
when council agreed to accept the emergency
Right.
rental assistance is we were also stabilizing a lot of small businesses, landlords, mom and pops
Right.
that own property that were not being paid to. So it wasn't just it was not just an individual benefit, it was also a business benefit. And we were very particular with that money, in that Treasury would have allowed us to give it to tenants, but we gave it only to landlords who were able to demonstrate a loss of rent during those 2 years. So we took some steps to balance both the business and the individual benefit.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Durant. I would just say my 2 cents on this is what we're trying to do through our programming. We've identified the need. We know it's a supply and demand issue. The basics of this is it's pretty simple economics. If we don't have enough of it, the prices of it's going to be really high. In fact, our plan identifies that we need 30 to 35,000 units. And so the question is, how can we be a part of facilitating, incentivizing more houses and keeping them at a rate that our workforce can occupy? Because what we see is our workforce and those that we call maybe in the missing middle getting moved out because they can't afford to live where they work and near where they want to play, and that quality of life is affected. And what my goal would be, personally, as one of 9 members of this council, is to do that in the most efficient way that we can, which is leveraging those dollars. And so I love to see that our number 1 priority here is the establishment of this housing trust fund, because that will enable us to leverage those dollars. When there's money there that other entities can borrow against for these projects, just like we've seen effectively done in the gap financing, it's going to create more per dollar units. So I completely understand the metrics here. 83 million is a lot of money. I would want to see, 25 million people served by that. But we've got to look at the realities, and we also need to give it time to see how it does affect the rest of the market. Right. As we do that going forward right now, what I'd like to take a look at on Ms. Durant has a slide of where have we already begun to take a bite at these priorities that are within our strategic goals.
What you'll see on the screen, and then I think we have a handout, an individual handout that has the 1-pager. This represents either programs that have been implemented, are being implemented, or are being designed relative to the priorities that were laid out through the goals and strategies in this plan. So you'll see, just because you have a check on an item, it doesn't mean it's complete. it means it is something we are working on. In some cases, it could be like the emergency rental assistance. That program is currently closed. So as you go forward with a trust or a fund or whatever you go forward with, some options may be for new programming or new priorities, but some may be to fund existing programs that already are in play. And so this is a representative, and then the one page that Kristen just handed out just gives you a different way to look at what exact programs are tied to these check marks in the strategies and objectives.
Excellent. Does anybody have any questions about these? I know we've said it several different ways, but for instance, we've already started to tackle providing the capacity building and technical assistance. That was someone's priority. Does anybody have any questions specifically about what we're already doing in these categories? I will note that item 3B was our second highest vote getter, and we've started utilizing that in certain areas. You can look at the strategic goal on the handout you just got in the orange block, shows you where we're already working in that area. And Reverend Middleton, I'm sorry you can't see if you're still on with us.
I'm still on. I'm holding on. I think the screen was down, and because the screen was down, I could not see or hear or take advantage of the presentation. But I can hear very well, so I'm following and tracking everything that you're saying.
Thank you.
Madam Vice Chairwoman, I did ask Kristen Worcester if these documents and the presentation will be emailed, because since I was not able to see them.
Absolutely. We'll make sure these are available to anyone who would like a copy.
Thank you.
If there's no questions or any other further discussion or questions specifically for Ms. Durant, we can entertain a motion and discussion on a staff directive to begin the implementation process.
I would like some discussion on it, but I would make the motion to authorize staff to develop a program or programs to implement the 3 priorities established at the Housing Our Future workshop.
We'll make it 2. Can we amend that?
Because we have a big.
We're going to focus on those 2.
I think that's fair. I think, I'll give my commentary after. To implement 2 priorities established at the Housing Our Future workshop.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right. Discussion. Go ahead. Yep.
I just want to clearly understand what we're authorizing. Could you explain it a little better? I mean, we're just authorizing them to look as to how to implement it, but not to vote to them to implement it. Is that correct?
Yes. So I think, so the 2 priorities we've got here are land banking and establishing an affordable housing trust fund. I would imagine that staff will, and I would imagine they would want some input on sort of how we envision those things. But I would imagine that they would be bringing back, sort of more fully formed, detailed plans. I don't know what the time period on that is, but as expeditiously as possible. And so, yes, I think that this is a directive to staff to basically, it's a huge plan. So we've got to focus somewhere. We've got to start somewhere. And I think this is a directive to have them focus and start there.
So it's just have them come up with a plan for us to consider that we'll then can vet later. So,
And it's not just a plan, it's the implementation strategy. So we have identified, for instance, the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. They will bring to us an actual recommendation on how to begin funding that and what that looks like, what sources we can use, and all of the things that Ms. Durant discussed in the what we're working on now. You'll recall, for instance, Ms. Ham is working on the SSRC. There are just some legal ramifications to using how we set that up. And so that has to be part of the actual implementation. We have to get it right the first time. The governor's bill, this is pretty timely that we get this source of funding 5 minutes before the meeting starts, but can we use funding that was collected this tax year before the bill was actually implemented? that's a question that remains. So those are things that I hope within 60 to 90 days, staff can come back with an implementation strategy. My hope was also to get this done, focus on our budget, which we do through June, and maybe by mid to late July, staff will be able to come back and again, focus on this. So
Again, I want to thank you very much for the time, energy, and efficiency that you brought to this and the directive for them to come up. I just had questions when they do come back. I wanted to make it clear about how it affects. By doing this, I'd want the question answered, how does it affect the cost of housing for all the people who aren't directly subsidized or being benefited? I'd want that as part of what I hope they can answer, but in terms of having to come up with a plan for us to consider, certainly that would be timely. Thank you.
any other comments, discussion?
Madam Vice Chairwoman, I did certainly wish to ask that question, but I heard you say that, considering 2024 budget, they will let us know in July if indeed, based on the approval, if these funds could be used in the upcoming budget, or we would have to wait till the next budget cycle. So that is certainly a question I would like to know.
And normally with our budget readings, we have amendments up to third reading, which I imagine we will hear. And so we should be able to have that information before it's actually time to approve the final reading of the budget.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Mr. Boykin.
I just wanted to bring up, we'll all get a chance to discuss this further at council.
Right.
So, and any questions that we haven't gotten resolved, we'll have an opportunity to have discussion there as well.
Absolutely. And my hope was that we will have if it's the chairman's wish, special finance on Tuesday to move these action items forward to council on Tuesday evening. All right. But do you have more discussion on this before we go?
I can't help myself.
Okay. That's why we're here.
Because I know that this is something that a lot of folks in the community care about, and I just understand Councilman Kobrovsky's concerns. I guess, again, to speak to what I think are the concerns there, and maybe stuff for folks to think about before we come together on Tuesday. But, you look at what we did with the 10 million. I don't know what the level of funding would be in a trust fund or revolving loan fund, but you knocked off, I don't know, if you're focusing on maybe just the under 80 AMI, I think you're talking about like 3% of what the entire sort of overall need would have been. And keep in mind, as this was explained, this is not just the Charleston County, this is everybody. So, and this thing has a 10-year time sort of lookout. So if you do 10 years, 3%, that's one tool that if we were to fund it at $10 million, and I think it would get more efficient, I mean, you're talking about solving a third of the need, depending on how widely you want to look at this. I mean, at some point, I do think that is going to definitely impact prices overall, but you're also just talking about just directly solving the issue at a scale that I think is, maybe not 100% of what's listed here, but I think is at least recognizes the scale of what we're doing. So I do think, I think that understand that concern, but we've been told basically by Mr. Carney that the market will not produce this stuff, and so it's either this or nothing. Well, maybe not this specifically, but it's the cavalry ain't coming on this one. So I think we've shown it far more ability than not that I would have thought, but really I think we're ahead of schedule as far as our ability and what we've sort of proven here, and so I think excited moving forward.
Ms. Durant, can you pull back up the slide that had the directive from 2009? And yes, Mr. Sass?
I just wanted to say I'm just really happy and really excited about all the work that's gone into this and where we've gotten to this far. Y'all have really done a tremendous job to get us to this point. And just to take a couple of things in context, the gap financing, that's gonna put a number, 300 and something units out there. And so we had a big part in getting that done. And so, some people think maybe we haven't been doing much, but it hadn't been real obvious. Y'all have been working behind the scenes, getting all this done. And we really appreciate the work that y'all have done to get us to this point. That's why it's all possible. And again, Mr. Kowalski, that $83 million figure is kind of bloated by that rental assistance number. And that was one-time money, and that rental assistance, I knew lots of landlords that were screaming and crying and going to lose their properties to the bank, and they were able to survive. And some of these were mom and pop, some of these were big people that owned 200 units, but there was a real variety of things, and that rental assistance was something that really helped a large segment of our community. We'd have had a lot of problems if all those people had gone bankrupt or had to lose their properties. And
I want to make it clear, I wasn't criticizing the efficiency
I didn't think you were
of efforts
criticizing.
in any way of the staff, but there's many people in the county who have trouble paying their taxes and staying in their homes, who are people of modest means and are getting subsidies. And it's a difficult thing to face as they get older. They may be retired, they may be a lower income or middle income, and the price of your home has gone up tremendously because you exist. And I was saying that it's also an affordability crisis to stay in your home, pay your real estate taxes, pay your rent, or pay your
right.
your mortgage. Those are equal things. That's all I was addressing,
Well, they are.
not the efforts of the
Right.
staff in using the money that they had, whether it would affect them in almost to be subsidizing people directly is more efficient. Now, this was raising questions, but I wasn't criticizing the efforts of the staff, that they weren't doing the best
I know you
with
weren't.
what they had.
I just want
Thank
to make
you.
sure you understood that it really went to a lot of property owners. That money didn't go to the renters. They didn't get the money. There was a problem, somebody hadn't paid their rent, and it went to the owners of those properties. So they're able to pay their taxes and keep their properties, and now they got their properties rented again. So they're back on their feet, and it helped a lot of people from all different, whether they got one unit in their backyard or they got 20. And so it helped a lot of people. It really did. And I'm really, really happy that we were able to put that together, and I'm happy that we put it together and did it the right way, with Ms. Durant and Ms. Ham making sure that we crossed all the Ts and dotted the Is properly.
And
Thank y'all.
to a point that Mr. Werman made, this is a county-wide plan. This is not just county council directing our jurisdictional authority to solve this problem. It will require, and the plan lays out, the participation of our municipal governments, but it is a bold step forward that I think the county can lead on. It's something I think that many of our constituents have been waiting and coming back to us, week after week to address this. Part of the challenge was the funding source and how we were going to do that. And one of the main criteria for some of us was we don't want to have to raise taxes. We need to find it within our budgets. And that goes to this, remarkable opportunity with the A-tax revenue, because it is a special revenue fund. We've just confirmed with finance staff, we do not have to, Reverend Middleton, this is to answer your question, we do not have to include it in our budget. It can be allocated and approved at a separate time outside the budget. It is a separate revenue source, so it doesn't have to be a part of our budgeting
I
process.
want to thank you for that. I think that's fantastic and great news to use the A-tax fund to help tourism pay for the housing needs of our people is a wonderful and great thing, and a great new accomplishment, and something we didn't have available before. So that's a good thing.
Absolutely. All right, all in favor of the directive to staff, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Actually, this is just for our committee, but Tuesday we'll all get to vote. Thank you. So, ayes have it. Thank you so much. Is there anything else that anyone would like to discuss about Housing Committee? Reverend Middleton, did you have anything to add?
No, ma'am. Thank you all for allowing me to appear virtually.
Absolutely. Thank you for making time. Best wishes at the wedding this afternoon.
Yes, it's about underway in just a few seconds.
All right. Take care. Thank you all for joining us today. We appreciate you being here. We're adjourned.
Well, another quick
Look at that.